In this episode, it's time again for us to take a nostalgia-fueled stroll down memory lane and look at some of the toys I wish I had when I was a kid. So, stick around. Dorks and Dorkettes, and welcome to Nostalgia Syndrome. My name is Rob, and in this episode we will be looking at more toys I wish I had when I was a kid. These toys range from the elite toy lines of the 1980s to some of the most forgotten toy lines. And I feel a little bit guilty because I just know I will be double dipping and talking about some of these toys in future Plastic Ghost episodes. But, like I always say, you can never have too many toys, or talk about too many toys. So anyway, let's get started. Now this is a toy that I feel like virtually every kid had. Except for me, of course. I mean, that's what this show's about. But anyway, this is the original Kenner-produced OG Stormtrooper figure. First released in 1978, Kenner's Star Wars figures are often credited for kicking off the action figure boom of the 1980s. At least the 3 3/4 scale figures, that is. They were definitely one of the hottest toys to ever hit the shelves. The popularity of the Star Wars action figures mirrored the popularity of Lucas's film. It was groundbreaking, and the figures were groundbreaking as well. Of course, you look at them now and they're very archaic, but for what they were and the time they were released, they are darn near perfect. They have some really great detailing for toys that at that time didn't. And of course, they have very limited articulation, which is really weird that it's making a comeback due to Reaction and their figures they release. Now, the Stormtrooper was probably one of the very first troop-building action figures that was released. There may have been others, but this is one that I can vividly remember kids having like half a dozen of them just laying around. And here I was with none. A big goose egg. No Stormtroopers. I honestly don't know why. I don't have a story to accompany why I never got a Stormtrooper. Like I said, this was a figure I remember seeing kids having dozens of. There was a cat that I knew growing up that he had a whole playroom decked out with different dioramas of scenes from the movies. And he would use building blocks to, fill in for furniture and things like that. But this dude probably had 20 plus Stormtroopers because they were in different scenes and had multiple, variations of them in those scenes. Anyway, like I said, I don't have a clear story as to why I never had one, but still to this day, I wish I did. Of course, I got, Power of the Force ones, or, ones from the newer movies or releases, and I definitely would love a Black Series one, but having the original would just be so perfect. Now, this toy was also released by Kenner, but this time in 1983. It is Grumpy from the Care Bears posable action figure line. Now, Care Bears, of course, blew up in popularity with their stuffed counterparts, which I'll talk about those another time. This time, we're going to talk about the small PVC action figures they released. These were 3-inch figures, and if you remember, few episodes ago, I talked about the Get Along Gang figures and how I wanted those. Well, it was the same thing with these Care Bear posable figures. I mean, yes, I wanted a Care Bear, one of the super awesome plush ones, and we'll talk about that another day. But these little 3-inch action figures, if you will, had limited articulation, head, shoulders, hips, kind of like a Star Wars figure, but they were just so cute. For lack of better terms, cute. I'm man enough to say it. They were cute, and I wanted one. But anyway, the reason I wanted these posable ones so bad was because they could fit into my playtime universe. You know, the universe that I talk about quite often, where I would just mash up all my toys and they would all thrive together and battle together and, yeah, just live together in one shared universe. A multiverse, if you will, since that's a very popular term nowadays. Anyway, I could see Grumpy hanging out with the Joes, hanging out with He-Man, just, you know, being a lovable, cute friend for anybody that needed one. I mean, do his Care Bear stare and, like, melt some faces? I mean, yeah, like, limitless possibilities just rushed through my head of how much fun I could have had. Now, like I said, I'll talk about his plush counterpart at a later time, but this story kind of goes hand in hand with it. See, my grandparents knew how much I loved Grumpy Bear. And I can remember one of their trips to Florida, which they frequently took every winter, announced to my parents on the phone that they had a special surprise for me. Of course, my imagination ran wild, and could it have been the Grumpy Bear posable? Could it have been the Grumpy Bear plush? No, it was this. Now, I love this guy. I mean, I still have him from darn near 40 years ago. I still love him. I'm still happy to have him, but this ain't what I was thinking about. Now, other than that, yes, I have some stories as to why I didn't get the plush version, but as far as the posable one, you got me. I just was never able to get one. And yeah, recently I went into the local, you know, vintage toy store in my town. I walk in one day and he has all of the posable Care Bear figures. Well, not all of them. It was missing the cousins and that cloud dude with the push broom and all that. But all the core characters, they were right there. Oh, I rushed home and told my wife how much I wanted these, and she okayed the purchase. I went back a few weeks later and they were gone. Of course, my first thought was someone bought them, but I inquired. You know, hey dude, what happened to those Care Bears that you had right here at your cash register? His story was, he went on a convention circuit and his mom was watching the store for him. Well, when he got back, he got mad at her. So mad, in fact, that he threw everything off of his counter area, put it in a box, and just shoved it somewhere in this horribly cramped and dirty store. So, do you know where they're at, dude? Nope, no idea. I was pretty mad. That dude lost a big sale that day, and yeah, I've been into the store since, but I always will have a strong resentment that I never got those figures. Now, this is a toy line that a lot of people want to act too cool for school about. But me, on the other hand, this is a toy line I would love to get my hands on, and that is GoBots. Now, GoBots, I had quite a few of them because they were reasonably priced compared to Transformers at the time. But there were a few GoBot sets that were a bit unattainable because they were a little bit more pricey. This was one of them. This is the Combiner Monstrous. Now, Monstrous was made from 6 individual different renegade Transformers. You know, the bad guy. Because you know a dude with the name of Monstrous ain't working for the good guys. Anyway, I can't really recall in my memory just what the 6 individual ones looked like. I'm sure they were awesome. I remember them having really neat colors. But the image of Monstrous is one that I will never forget. I think for me, the one thing that really stands out and made it something that I really wanted were the wings on his shoulders. It just cuts a really nice silhouette and it just fits the character perfectly. I mean, he's named Monstrous, and Yeah, he looked a lot more monstrous than some of the Transformers toys. But when they started putting together sets like Monstrous, they weren't that cheap anymore. And that's probably the reason why I was never able to get one. Now, Monstrous was released in 1986 by Tonka, and that could be one of the reasons why I couldn't get him. Might not have just been the price, it could have been the fact that in 86 I was 10, and my parents were trying to phase toys out. And as you can tell nowadays, it didn't really work. Anyway, this is an awesome figure, and I'm really curious to when we do our hunt just how much he will be, because like I said, GoBots don't really get the respect that they deserve nowadays. At least with the too cool for school crowd. Now this next toy is kind of like a fever dream to me, because I kind of have a hazy recollection of playing with it, but I have no idea of when or where or how I was able to get my hands on it. But it's one of those things that I always think back on and really want one. And I really wanted one when I was a kid. Now, like the Care Bears that we talked about earlier, this toy line was just darn cute. And it is the Woodsy Friends, released by Fisher-Price in 1979. Yes, I know I'm kind of cheating because it's not from the 80s, but it's 79. That's pretty darn close. Anyway, the one that I remember the most was this squirrel family. You got 3 of them, a mom, a dad, and a little baby squirrel. And they came with this log house that was also plush like them. Kind of like a nylon-y kind of texture to it, if I'm remembering correctly. And it would fold up in Velcro so you can keep them in their little house. And the thing that really blew my mind at the time was, even though the log was plush and the squirrels were plush, there were plastic accessories that came with it and plastic doors and windows on the stump. Well, log, sorry. And I just thought it was so awesome. I always remember searching for it when I was a kid, and I was never able to find any to get for myself. But that's to say, if I ever did find it, I don't know if my parents would have actually gotten it for me. But anyway, the Woodsy Friends. I have to tell you, I had a very hard time looking up this toy. Going from a memory up here to a computer screen right there was very difficult, especially because Fisher-Price has kind of used the Woodsy Friends name for their baby and toddler collections. So I was getting a lot of hits for, walkers and jumpers and rockers and all that kind of stuff. But eventually I was able to uncover a few here and there, and I was blown away by all the other animals in the Woodsy Friends collection. I mean, there was a mole, it was like a dude with a plane. They had everything, and it just blows my mind even more that I couldn't find any of these on the shelves at that time. But then again, in '79, I was 3, so I'm assuming I found one through a friend, through a doctor's office visit, back when they used to have toys, a Goodwill, what have you, wherever I remember playing with this thing. It probably was a few years after '79, and it might not have been on the shelves anymore. But with the difficulty in finding the few hits that I did, I really have no idea how vast this toy line was. And I forgot to add that they each came with a little storybook, so bonus. Now the last toy on the list is one that, when it was released in 1986, I don't remember seeing it on the shelves. The only time I saw it is when I went to my neighbor's house and him and his brother each had a part of this toy line. It is the Steel Monsters toy line released by Tonka. Now, Tonka also appeared on this list for releasing GoBots, but Tonka was really known for their heavy-duty metal trucks. I mean, big ones. They had these big yellow bulldozers and dump trucks, and these toys, I mean, you could drop them off a cliff and you could still play with them. They were rugged and tough and heavy, and they kind of utilized that technology to make the steel monsters. From what I can remember, these were solid metal frames with plastic accessories and things kind of tacked on. Now, the one I will be talking about is Masher, which came with the character Metalface. Now, there was a small window in the 80s when post-apocalyptic toys were all the rage. Now, the ones I can think about didn't really go anywhere. You kind of blinked and you missed it with them. Now, the one with the most exposure was Captain Power, which we've talked about a few times on this channel. But Steel Monsters, also post-apocalyptic themed, but instead of having like a heavy sci-fi theme like Captain Power, this one was more of the Mad Max vein. So much, in fact, that Metalface is pretty much a dead ringer for Lord Humongous from Mad Max. Now, I played with it at my friend's as much as I could, and the figures, which are 3 3/4, were very akin to Star Wars figures at the time. Very limited articulation, which kind of was falling out of favor during the mid to late 80s because you had, like, G.I. Joe that were super articulated. So it was kind of a step backwards in the action figure realm. Now, the Masher vehicle was a road grader. It has an awesome blade at the bottom of it, and to give it that post-apocalyptic vibe, it had a kind of cobbled together turret system that had a little gun and like a covered, top to it, and the figure would sit up there. And like I said, it was perfect for G.I. Joe to jump in and play along. Now, they released a lot of really awesome vehicles in this toy line, and I will talk about them at greater length in a future episode. But like I said, we're just talking about the Masher vehicle, because for some reason that one just stood out to me. It's long, it's heavy, it's chunky, and it just looks nasty. It is something that definitely looks like it's from the deserts of Mad Max. Now, all the figures that came with the Steel Monster vehicles were released singularly. And again, I don't remember seeing them on any pegs at any time. Now, Tonka knew what they were doing, and they knew which character was going to sell. They actually included Metalface with another vehicle, and that is the Bomber, which is also a very impressive looking vehicle, and one that, again, would fit perfectly within the G.I. Joe universe. And they're perfect for the Dreadnoks to be rolling around in. I mean, it's just like a more heavy-duty version of the Thunder Machine. Anyway, this was just another list of toys I wish I had when I was a kid. It's number 14 in the series, and this is a phrase that I use quite often. I don't see an end in sight, because there were so many toys that I wanted that I never got, for one reason or the other. Mostly it's a budgetary reason, and I don't blame my parents. There are a lot better priorities to spend that money on. Of course, I can just be a tad bit bitter while remembering it, but I have complete understanding, and they definitely made the right decision. But anyway, I hope you liked this episode. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you got something to say, please leave a comment. I love reading them, and I love getting back to everybody. And if you're new around here and you enjoyed this, or any of the episodes that YouTube is recommending down here, please hit subscribe. And if you hit that little bell icon, you will be notified whenever there's a new episode. So anyway, thanks for watching. Keep being rad, and stay dorky!